What's our next question, sir?
Hello everybody and welcome to our channel. If this is your first time here, we are so happy to have you. While you're here, go ahead and hit that subscribe button and be sure to turn on those notifications so you can be notified every time we put out a new video. If this is not your first time here, welcome back. So what this video is going to be about is a little bit more of an informational side of the airline industry. I know Ryan gets asked all the time, what do you do for a living? How did you become a flight attendant? And I also get asked, how did you get your foot into the airline industry? So that's what we want this video to be about, is kind of an interview style question and answer so that we can give as much information to people who are applying to be flight attendants, interviewing, or have just started their career as a flight attendant.
90% of the time, whenever I get asked, what do you do for a living? And I say, I'm a flight attendant, I get this answer. Oh my gosh, I've always wanted to be a flight attendant. This is what that video is about. It's answering those questions, because the next question I get after that is, how do I become a flight attendant?
So a quick little history on us. If this is your first time here, my name is Travis. I work customer service for a US-based airline, and Ryan is a flight attendant for the same exact airline. So back in my 20s, I was like many of you, I was applying for flight attendant positions at multiple different airlines. I made it to the face-to-face interviews, I made it to the one-on-ones, but I kept getting those thanks but no thanks emails that I know everyone dreads getting. And unfortunately, I gave up at that time. I decided to call it quits on applying to be a flight attendant. And one thing I want everyone to get out of this video is to not give up. I made a huge mistake giving up on my dreams, and contrary to people's belief, airlines love seeing you try again, try again. It just shows your dedication to the job. So now that I am 32 years old, I have just broken back into the airline industry, got my foot in the door. I am working customer service and ground operations for said airline, and I'm excited. So now that you know a little bit more about my background, Ryan, tell us a little bit more about your background.
My name is Ryan, I'm 39 years old, and I've worked for our airline for 19 years. I started in August 15th of 2000, and I worked on the ground for 3 years and 3 months before I decided to go in flight. I was on a trip. We did Edinburgh, Scotland, and London. And when I arrived back home, some of my coworkers told me that while I was gone, that the company sent out an email looking for internals to go in flight. So I applied for the position. At the same time, there was actually a ground supervisor position that had opened up. And I was contemplating whether I wanted to get into management and then go in flight, or in flight and then management. And with talking with my superiors, I decided it was best for me to go in flight, take this opportunity, and then if I wanted to move up to management later on down the road, I could. So I applied for the in-flight position. I did my interview in September of 2003. Then I went to training in October of 2003. And I graduated November 24th. I have been a flight attendant now for 17 years in November. I am based here in Austin, Texas. It is a satellite base for us, so we only have 107 flight attendants based here, and I'm like number 64 in seniority. It has turned really senior the last few months. There is no reserve, so we don't sit reserve here in a satellite base. We only have VR line, which is vacation relief lines. For people that have vacation, their trips get pulled, and then it creates a line for us. A lot of flight attendants want to transfer to Austin Satellite Base.
And Ryan brings up a really good point. So he started on the ground as a customer service agent before going in flight. And there's a lot of people out there who have their heart dead set on becoming a flight attendant, and I get that, and more power to you. But there is nothing wrong with getting your foot in the door at that airline that you want, becoming a customer service agent, becoming a ramp agent, and then working your way up. Because I will say most airlines will open up internal candidate applications for flight attendants before they send them out to the public for open applications. So if you have your heart dead set on a specific airline, get in any way you can. Don't be disheartened by the thanks but no thanks if you apply for flight attendant and don't get it. Get your foot in any way you can.
And even if that means you have to be a wheelchair pusher, I know some employees that work for our airline that had started as a wheelchair pusher. There have been a few that had worked in a concession or a restaurant in the airport or a HMS host gift shop that now work for our company. And what they did on their break time, they would go and study our airline model and what it took to work on the ground and talking with flight crews, and now they work for our airline.
And sometimes it does take that customer service experience on your resume to make it through, to break in to that first round of interviews. I know that there are a lot of people who maybe don't have any customer service experience and they're like, why am I not getting past the resume period? Why am I not getting past the assessment? Why can't I make it past that point? There's no harm in starting where you need to start to gain that experience. Without further ado, let's get this interview started. So one question Ryan gets asked a lot, and I'm sure you also get asked a lot, why did you want to become a flight attendant?
It's a great question. I wanted to become a flight attendant at a young age, and I wanted to become a flight attendant for the airline I work for at a young age. To give you a little bit of the backhand story, my parents got a divorce when I was 4 years old. My mother moved myself and my siblings down to Southern California. My father and his family lived in Northern California. We'd have to fly back and forth quite often. And I didn't understand the concept of flying and how this pressurized capsule tube would take off, be at cruise altitude, and land all in one piece. And then when you threw turbulence into the mix, I was a hot mess. I would hold on to my siblings' hands, the armrests. I would tense up. I was a true fearful flyer. It wasn't until later on I was flying by myself and a flight attendant for the airline I work for had taken the time to explain flying to me in layman's terms enough to where I understood it as a kid. And I even helped this flight attendant serve peanuts, and we hit turbulence and I did lose grip of the basket and peanuts went everywhere, and she laughed it off and I was scared. I was underneath the passenger seat and she's like, "It's okay, honey," and she explained it to me. And mind you, this is an hour and 5-minute flight, and she took the time to explain flying to me. And I got off that flight. We arrived at my grandmother's house, and I remember calling my mother and telling her I was safe and I made it. And I told my mom at the end of the conversation, I'm gonna become a flight attendant when I grow up. And my mom laughed her butt off. She thought that was hilarious because she knew that wasn't the son that she had put on the plane 2.5 hours before that conversation and me saying, I'm gonna become a flight attendant. She knew that that wasn't her son. So she laughed it off. Well, fast forward a couple years later, in career day in junior high school, I had typed in stewardess and steward, and the job description had came up on the computer screen, and I was reading the description of what it took to become a flight attendant, and it was even talking about weigh-ins and all that stuff, and the pay scale was like $10 an hour to $13 an hour starting, which I don't even know how they lived on that wage. So I remember the counselor coming by and she put her hand on my shoulder and she goes, "Oh, honey, guys are not flight attendants, or guys are not stewardesses." And I'm like, okay, turning bright red, and call me out in front of the class. So I knew then, leaving career day, that was still a job that appealed to me. And I knew that I wasn't going to go to college. I knew that schooling and myself did not get along. So I needed to think of a career and a career path that I wanted to go into. And I still was coming up with, I wanted to be a stewardess or a steward at the time. My mom was diagnosed with cancer when I was 14 years old. So I knew when I graduated high school that I wasn't going to be able to become a flight attendant right off the bat, but I wanted to get my foot in the door. So I took a ground position job, and like I said before, I tried when I was 18 years old, got denied, and got that thanks but no thanks letter. And then I reapplied when I was 20 years old, and I did get the position. I knew that I always wanted to become a flight attendant still, and my mom, one of her few last words that she had said to me was, "Honey, become a flight attendant. It's gonna mean that you're closer to me in heaven." So I became a flight attendant.
So that question is going to be asked to you, whether it be in the video interview or the face-to-face interview. So start thinking of the reasons why you want to become a flight attendant. Put it down in the comments. Let us know why you wanted to become a flight attendant now that you know our story. So another big question that's always asked is, what was your interview process like? So what was your interview process like?
The interviewing process is really rigorous, and they're always watching you. So I mean, the minute you walk into the building, all eyes are on you. And you want to make sure you shine. And it does, I mean, sit up straight in the chairs in the waiting room. Do whatever you can do to shine. Because most likely, the first process is a group interview most of the time. So you have to shine. Let's say there's 50 other people in this group interview. The interviewing panel is going to be distracting. They're going to be taking notes. They're also going to be nodding. They're going to look up at you and look back down at the clipboard. And don't get discouraged. Just keep on going through with whatever they're asking, whether it be you read part of the emergency announcement, or whether you have to say something about yourself, your name, your age, why you want to be a flight attendant, whatever question that might come up, you need to shine and work on talking in a group. And just smile. That's a huge thing. And before you get to the interview, make sure that you wear something that is business professional, whether that be the navy blues, the blacks. Make sure you're ironed or pressed. Make sure that you're not showing too much cleavage. Make sure to tone down your makeup. Airlines love the red lips. Just make sure that you look professional and you look tailored and you look the part as a flight attendant. And they're going to be scoring you the minute you walk in through those doors. But don't be discouraged. Go in there with confidence. Go in there with saying, I can do this. I will do this. And you will ace the interview. Mm-hmm. But I interviewed 17 years ago. What advice can you give since you just did the interviewing process for the airline?
So the interview process has changed a little bit since Ryan did interview. I know now that a lot of airlines will send you an assessment, which is just a personality assessment. Then the next step will be a video interview. And then the step after that will be the invitation to the face-to-face interview. Even in that video interview, you need to be able to stand out like you are surrounded by 50 other applicants, because I know our specific airline, the last time they opened applications, which was over 19 months ago, and they're still working off of those applications, they received 30,000 applications. So even though you are alone at your home or in your office doing that video interview, there are 29,000 other people who are doing the same thing you are. So that is just some really good advice about standing out and shining. Also, a little embarrassing story about one of my interviews back in the day when I was applying for flight attendant. It's no joke. You have to stand out. You have to shine. I know that we went into this auditorium in a hotel. All we did was stand up, introduce ourselves, and we thought, everyone I think thought it was just kind of an introduction. But they made their first round of cuts based solely off of how you stood up, how you pronounced your name, how you impressed the panel with your confidence. If you were shy, if you were nervous, you didn't make it to the second round. That was the first round. So always expect the unexpected in these interviews, because it's no joke. The second you walk in the door, they're looking at you. If you're slouching in your chair, if you're texting someone, even though maybe there's 60 other people in front of you and you're waiting your turn to speak, if you're sitting there on your phone, chances are you're not making it to round 2. So
put that phone away.
Put the phone away. Also, another thing which I thought it was a little bit of common sense, but we actually get asked a lot, hey, if I work for another airline, should I wear my airline uniform to my interview? Absolutely not. Do not wear your current airline uniform to an interview for a different airline.
But I did wear our uniform for my in-flight interview.
That's different.
But it's the same uniform across the board for us. And to give you a little bit of information on Travis, because I've known him many of years now, he does not like to speak in a group setting.
No.
He does good one-on-one. So that was one thing that we had to work on together, was kind of getting him used to that, just in case he had to have a group interview or anything like that.
I can show confidence speaking in a video interview, talking to the camera like I'm talking to you right now, but get me up in front of a group of 50 or 100 other candidates, I clam up. Which, that story that I told, I did not make it to round 2 because I'm pretty sure my voice was shaking so bad during my introduction. So it's get prepared, practice.
Get with your friends and just have them critique you, and you know, it's not. We just started our vlog, and we're working on tailoring it, and it's the same thing. It's like we're trying to put out good content for y'all, and we don't want to be judged on being bad, so it's the same thing.
Yeah.
Kind of like we have our in-flight panel that's watching our every moves. What's our next question, sir?
So my next question for you, what was your experience for in-flight training?
Oh, this is a good question. And the reason why it's a good question is because, you know, I worked on the ground and I had to report to work after I already knew I had the job. So I would talk to a lot of flight attendants that would come through my gate, and they would tell me horror stories about in-flight training. And I'm talking about, like, you had to write out your answers, spelling counted, there wasn't multiple choice, you had to know your announcements word for word. I mean, I was starting to begin to think, what did I get myself into? And I was scared. I can tell you that in-flight training has changed now, even since I went through training 17 years ago. But I had it a little bit easier than some of the senior mamas and daddies out there. And what I mean is, we had a lot of multiple choice questions, and we are able to do it on the Scantrons, like back in the day where you would do your A, B, C, D bubble with your pencil. And then every other day, so you'd either have a test every other day, or you would have a proficiency drill that you had to do. Whether you would do your planned or unplanned drill, whether you were learning the equipment, is it secure, is it going to operate, whether you were fighting fires, whether you were jumping in a pool. So you had to constantly stay in whatever chapter you guys were working on. Your instructor is going to give you all the knowledge, but you cannot read ahead and you cannot fall behind. You have to just stay present in the moment. They're going to give you all the knowledge. They're going to give you all the answers to the test. You're going to learn that manual forward, backwards, upside down. You are going to know all the information in it. And it can be overwhelming because, I mean, our training was 5.5 weeks. But we only have a couple of different aircraft types, series, but they're all still Boeing aircraft. I know some airlines, they have Boeing and Airbus, and they have different configurations, and it can be more complex. Their training can be up to 8 weeks long. So I was thankful that it was only 5.5 weeks. I do know that in-flight training now is a lot easier. I did have to know our announcements word for word. You had to know it word for word. And there's like 20 different announcements. And so I remember as a gate agent, I would sit up at the gate And if nobody was around later in the evening or early in the morning, I would use the PA and I'd crouch down behind the podium and I would make my announcements over the PA. And it would be funny because some of my friends would walk by and they're like, Ryan's practicing again for in-flight training. But I did have to know it word for word, and I did get it out. Matter of fact, one of the cards I drew was the fasten seatbelt sign was on, and I had to turn around and pull it out of my memory from flying on the plane. I couldn't, for the life of me, remember word for word what that PA was, and I passed. And I have a learning disability growing up and when I was in school. So if I can make it through in-flight training, so can you. In our in-flight training class, we did have a roommate for the 5.5 weeks, and I had a great roommate. Hey, shout out Jonathan, hey. But I do know that some airlines now, to cut costs, you can still share a room, and some give you your own room. I know that I learned better in a group setting. We would have our study groups after class, and they would start class at 6 in the morning, sometimes 1 o'clock in the afternoon, and they wanted to get us used to the flight attendant lifestyle because you can do flights at 4 a.m. or you might do flights at 4 p.m. So they wanted to get you used to that. And I know that the first Saturday in training, we did clinique day. And even the guys had to do it. We had to do a mask, we had to do moisturizer and all that. And the females also had to go through clinique day. And after class on that Saturday, the instructor said, okay, now show up on Monday looking how you were just done up by the clinique technician. So everybody got hair appointments and they were dyeing their hair, and we were you were becoming a flight attendant. And I look back and I know why they do it all. And it might seem overwhelming at the time, or why do they have to put you through so much pressure? Your airline is entrusting you that at 35,000 feet, if something's gonna happen, that you will be able to do that task at hand, whether it be CPR, fighting a fire, or if you had an emergency landing and you had to deploy the slides, that you can evacuate that plane in 90 seconds or less. And that's the time they give you for a small aircraft all the way up to the A380 double-decker. You have 90 seconds to evacuate that aircraft. And I can tell you that if I had to evacuate the aircraft, or if I had to do CPR or fight a fire, I can do it with just as much confidence now as I could 17 years ago.
And during training, there are going to be a few people who want to go out, want to go have drinks. You're on your own for 8 weeks. This is not the time to go out and have fun. I mean, if you want to go grab dinner with your study group, great. But it is not the time to go party in a new city. You have your whole life to do that, being a flight attendant on your overnights. For 8 weeks, keep your head in those books, study. There are so many people who get sent home from training because some airlines, you only get 2 fails, and by fail I mean a 90%. If you get an 89, you retake. If you get an 89 again, you are going home. There's no come back, try it again tomorrow. You're done. You start that process all over again to reapply. Just focus on what you need to be focusing on. Don't give in to peer pressure for the people who want to go have fun. Let them go have fun. Study.
And there is a true thing as body snatchers. Your friend could be there 1 week and the next day
they're gone.
They're gone. And it happens. So like he said, and we did have a gal that she would party every night in the hotel lobby bar, and she didn't make it. I guess she didn't want it as bad as some.
You know how hard it is to make it to that CJO. You know all of the blood, sweat, and tears it took to get that job offer. Do not mess it up.
You will have plenty of time to have fun on your overnights in different cities. And if your company goes internationally, you can go have drinks and dinner with your crew in Paris, or you can go have, fun on the beach in Cancun. But just make it through the training. Put your head in those books and study, and you will do fine. But don't get caught up in all that.
Yeah. Oh, and one other thing, I don't care if you're a flight attendant or if you're getting a job on the ground, it is never too early to start learning airport codes. That's currently what I'm doing. I'm pretty good at them, but go ahead and learn those airline codes now and press the socks off of your interviewer. Let them know this is how bad you want it. Okay, so now that you've gotten through the interview process and initial training, what was your first year like?
Congratulations, you made it through all that part. But I always tell new hires, new flight attendants, you need to give this job a year, because not everything is covered in basic training. You're gonna learn a lot from the senior mamas and daddies out there, and you're gonna learn a lot from your fellow coworkers. When you're on reserve, you're basically at the beck and call of your company, so it can be really challenging. So I tell people, give it a year, because in a year, a lot of stuff changes for the positive, and you get some seniority under your belt. Hopefully your airline will hire some more flight attendants and have some more in-flight training. So then you can look back and say, reserve wasn't that bad, or, you'll learn how to do your program system, whether you're bidding or you're trading your trips away, and you're fine-tuning your commuter policy and learning that if you are a commuter. So in initial training, you're gonna get your base that you're assigned in training, and you'll have to report there most likely right after training. So if you live in a different city than where you're based, you are labeled a commuter. So as a commuter, you will commute from your airport to the city you're based in, the airport you're based in, and you'll have most likely a crash pad, which is a house or an apartment that you share with multiple other flight attendants, even some pilots, and you have like 4 in a room, but that's a crash pad. So if you're a commuter, then you would be commuting to your base city. So you're fine-tuning that. You're figuring out what flights you need to take to arrive in your city you're based out of. You're gonna learn a lot from your coworkers. You might do something different. They might set up their cart differently or their tray differently, and you like the way they do it. So you're gonna do a lot of on-job learning, and that's not really covered in initial training. So I say give it a year, because a lot of stuff you're gonna look back and be like, oh my gosh, this is the dream job. And it's not gonna be always overnighting in Midland, Odessa, or El Paso, Texas, which I don't mind those overnights because they have good food. I can get me a good steak and baked potato, but you might start to get better trips and stuff like that. And it depends what airline you work for, but you might have more international flying and stuff like that. So.
And if you are a commuter, learn your airline's commuter policy inside and out, because the last thing you want to do is mess up on your commute and you end up not being covered under that commuter policy. And while we're talking about it, if your airline has a contract, learn contract, learn that contract in and out. Can't stress that enough.
Definitely, because there's going to be irregular operations, and that's going to affect you as a flight attendant, whether you're delayed a couple of hours, and are you going to time out? Like, are you covered under the contract? And, do you have enough hours crew rest? I mean, it's all covered in your union contract. So definitely make sure you study up on that if you have a union. And if you don't have a union, you're going to have everything outlined for you in your manual. So make sure you read all that stuff.
But definitely give it a year. I mean, and this goes for any position, because there's always going to be learning curves. You're going to, like you said, you learn a lot out on the actual line. So you may work your very first galley position and you're gonna have no idea, you're gonna feel like you have no idea what you're doing, but you're gonna think to yourself, I should know this, I went through training. But don't feel discouraged. Everyone started where you are. You're not gonna know everything right out of training. So,
and even like watching all the different flight attendant vlogs like we do or we have, a lot of times they're scared to fly the lead position. And you can't be scared. And like I said, go and brush up on the material. It's all there in your manual, and work that lead position and shine and thrive, and you will. And I don't mind working the lead position. I don't care for what we call our seat position, which you're responsible for the mid part of the aircraft. I don't like that position, but I can tell you that I don't have a position that I would never fly. Like, I can fly all our positions and it doesn't bother me.
Yeah.
Like,
so we wanted to put out this video to be as helpful and as informative as possible, because we know that right now is airline hiring season. We know that there are a ton of airlines who have open applications right now. People are getting called left and right for their video interviews and for their face-to-face interviews. And I'm always seeing on threads and Facebook posts, I need advice, I need advice. And we are happy to be here for that advice. If you need some moral support, we are here for you. Leave us a comment, let us know what you're struggling with or what you have questions on. We are going to be going through those comments and answering every single one. If you need that support system, we are here for you.
yeah, definitely. If you don't know another flight attendant, if you have questions, put them down in the comments below and I will answer them back. We'll answer them back, because yes, it was 17 years ago I went through training, but I mean, Travis,
I just went through the interview process. I just got my CJO for the ground. So I'm happy to answer any questions on that end.
Or even if you had the thanks but no thanks and you're discouraged, don't be discouraged. Put the comment down below. We'll respond back to you and give you that moral support, because you can become a flight attendant. And I believe in you. If I can do it, you can do it. I'm telling you, it's an awesome career and it's very fruitful, and I love the flexibility. I love the fact that we can jump on a plane and fly for a discount when we're going out of the country. We can fly for free. Our parents fly for free. If and when we have kids, they'll fly for free. I mean, it is a really good industry. And let's just all band together and help each other out.
Yeah. Also, our Instagram, which you'll see down here at the bottom, we upload stuff. We upload content from all of our personal travels, our work days. We're uploading content all the time on Instagram, so go check that out by all means. Don't forget to subscribe to this video and turn on your notifications so you can be notified when we do have some new videos out. It's not just gonna be informative videos. We're gonna have some overnights of Ryan. You'll see some videos of me at my training. And then of course we'll put out the occasional question and answer, pros and cons.
Holiday travelers, I mean, there's
so much we wanna do. Well, we thank you so much for spending your time with us on this video. Subscribe, like, comment. We are looking forward to reading your comments and answering any questions that you have.
a lot of airlines are hiring, so go out there and apply.
Yeah. All right, guys, until next time.